Fam, what we are not gonna do is let these frauds play us in 2020. What is up, my babies? It's your girl T, aka the nappy-headed jojoba, and sometime last year, just on a whim, I did a video where I ran down 10 times, pretty much off the top of my head, that our YouTube faves played us. You guys really seem to like that video, and I'm in the mood to do something lighthearted today. I don't really want to do anything too heavy because life is heavy enough sometimes. And I figured since we barely scratched the surface of all the times that these influencers have straight up lied to us, why not do it again? Sad as it is, it was pretty doggone easy to come up with 10 more times that these influencers hoodwinked us, bamboozled us, and ran us amok. Now listen, this is all in good fun. As I said, this is meant to be a lighthearted video, but I don't think it's really up for debate that a lot of these influencers might be more in their bag than having our best intentions in mind when they recommend things to us. Whether we're talking undisclosed sponsorships or product placements or just things where they're trying to remain on good terms with a brand, so they're erring on the side of more praise than might be warranted for a particular product, things get questionable. And sometimes it just comes down to plain old hype. It's not necessarily malicious intent, but just these influencers getting into a weird echo chamber of them singing the praises of a certain product that isn't really all that good in the first place, but for some reason, everyone's on the same bandwagon kind of out of nowhere. In this installment of 10 times that our faves lied to us, we're kind of gonna run the gamut. Now that we've got those disclaimers put aside, let's start off strong. I got 2 words for you. Best fiends. There was a point 2 to 3 years ago where pretty much every major beauty influencer was suddenly promoting a game. Talking about, oh, I love to play this game when I'm doing my makeup. Like, that doesn't even make sense. This Best Fiends campaign was far reaching because I must have seen at least a dozen different influencers whom I normally watch. Some of them I don't watch no mo. At least a dozen of the influencers who I watched were promoting this stupid game. And it was grating. I think what irked me the most about this was just that it made no sense whatsoever. I suppose that the brand was trying to expand their reach beyond the gamer community, but the copy that this brand had fed these influencers to crowbar into their videos where they were going to do these integrations, it was just obnoxious, far-fetched, it made no sense. Get it out of my face. I will say that was a pretty big turning point, and it was the beginning of the process of me unsubscribing from quite a lot of people. In terms of market saturation, Best Fiends was up there with the Benigmas and the Vanity Planet brushes. Like, it was inescapable. However much that brand spent on that campaign to pay all those influencers, I will never know, but they must not have gotten a very good ROI because ain't none of them talked about that game ever since. We're throwing it even farther back with our second example, Milk of Magnesia. This example actually makes me a bit more wistful for old school YouTube because no one was in their bag over this one. This was just more of not so great makeup advice being spread on a very, very large scale. If you remember the days of Milk of Magnesia being an extremely popular makeup primer, leave a ghost emoji because that's how that product has you looking. Obviously, the move was to go on top of your ghost face with your foundation afterward, and it was meant to be very effective at controlling oil, but it just makes me laugh to think of the days when booty gurus were putting laxative on their faces. Example numero tres. Let's talk about Powder. I'm sure many of you will remember that when Powder first came on the scene, someone over at Glossier HQ must have thought it would be some brilliant yet subversive campaign to send this product out to a bunch of influencers, pay for the product placement, and then forbid them from actually saying what the product was or what it was called. I remember this so vividly. I remember watching videos of these influencers saying, and I'm using a new powder, but I can't really talk about what it is. And I don't know about y'all, but for me, it had the opposite effect. Like, if you're gonna be all weird about what you're using and then expect me to come back later in like a week to find out what it was, I'm afraid you're mistaken. Not to mention, I think there were some viewers who just did the detective work, i.e. Googling, and figured out what brand it was from almost immediately. To this day, I have not tried Powder. It might be great. I honestly don't care, but it's always stuck in my craw that they thought that that was like a really cool, edgy way to market something. Like, bitch, please, no one cares. The idea that not telling people the name of your new product is somehow good marketing, it's just, It's mystifying to me to this day. Number 4, this one's a real YouTube classic. The Silly Sponge. I feel like Silly Sponge is the perfect name for that thing because y'all looked real silly. To the unfamiliar, a few years back, some Instagram brand, I want to say, invented the Silly Sponge, and all the booty gurus went crazy. Everyone was rushing to be the first out with their videos, reviewing it and trying it, because this was much more during the era of YouTube beauty stunt videos. You know, when people were doing, 100 layers of highlighter, 100 layers of liquid lipstick, stuff like that. So testing weird beauty gadgets also fit into this era of beauty YouTube. And one such gadget was this Silly Sponge, which was a piece of silicone or silicone. I don't know, girl. This thing was probably about the size of my little camera remote here, although thicker. And I believe at the time it was retailing for 25 to 30 bucks plus shipping. And everyone was clamoring for this thing because it was supposed to be superior to your typical beauty sponge like the Beauty Blender, because as it is silicone, it doesn't absorb anything. Problem with that is it doesn't absorb anything. So you're just smearing your foundation or your concealer all over your face, and it takes way longer than just using a brush, a sponge, or even your fingies. I do think that there were probably some booty gurus who were honest and were like, oh, this is a total gimmick and this is stupid. But I vividly remember seeing some shucking and jiving trying to claim that this was a good product and that they really liked it and that they were going to continue to use it. Meanwhile, I can't think of a single person who I've seen use a Silly Sponge since those things first came out. Whoever invented those things was laughing all the way to the bank, because I remember they sold out 2 or 3 times. It took a couple runs of production with these people before consumers realized, oh, this is stupid and it doesn't work at all. Number 5, Spongegate number 2, the Juno & Company sponge. Full disclosure, I do have one of these sponges. I actually just picked it up from Beautylish because in their gift card event, you have to spend a certain amount to be able to get their $20 gift card, and I was about $5 short of meeting the $100 threshold, and these sponges are like $6. So I was just like, all right, throw it in the cart. So anyway, I do have one of these sponges, but I purchased it with my eyes wide open. I knew full well that it was probably not worth the hype. And 5-second review, I will say, having reached for it once or twice, I don't think I've reached for it again since. But time traveling back to when this thing first launched, when it first came out, I think quite a lot of us found out about it through a very particular tier of influencers talking about it. We're talking about the biggest influencers in makeup YouTube. I'm pretty sure Nikki Tutorials did a video. And that's really the main one that sticks out in my mind, because it was treated as something that she had found randomly in her video. And she's like, is this the greatest beauty sponge ever? Or something like that was the title and the thumbnail. Who can remember? If I were professional, I would just check right now, but I'm not going to do that. Point is, quite a few very, very high-level booty gurus were singing the praises of this sponge, which legit came out of nowhere. And while it seemed to us as viewers like maybe this was just some incredible new find, like who knew, what luck that we were put on game to this awesome, affordable, new innovation in makeup sponges. Come to find out that they had actually done quite a lucrative campaign to place those sponges in videos with various influencers. I think it was revealed that they had put up a listing on FameBit or one of those where influencers can go and actually apply for campaigns and give their rates and work with brands kind of directly, although I'm pretty sure FameBit is owned or in partnership with YouTube anyway. If it wasn't FameBit, it was one of the other similar sites that there are that kind of broker deals between brands and influencers. Regardless, the main takeaway here was that most of these videos from these influencers where they were talking about how great this crazy cheap brand new sponge was and how it was completely changing the game, turns out those were almost definitely undisclosed sponsorships. Moving on to number 6, let's talk about when those Pat McGrath lipsticks first launched. The very first batch of what I believe are the matte trance lipsticks. Listen, I know a lot of people love Pat McGrath. They love her lipsticks, they love her eyeshadows, they love her everything. She can do no wrong for them. I, however, just am not the type to ride for brands like that. So when I was hearing about how these might be the greatest lipsticks in the world and all these various video titles that I was seeing, I was was immediately skeptical. Don't get me wrong, I love lipstick, obviously. But once we're getting into the luxury lipstick tier, I'm going to be a lot more wary of the claims, due in no small part to the fact that there are a lot of really great lipsticks that are affordable or more mid-tier. Pat McGrath, as a luxury brand, you kind of have to market yourself and talk people into thinking it is worth spending, what is it, $35, $38 on one lipstick. Still cheaper than a Tom Ford lipstick, but still. I don't want to seem like I'm picking on Nikki Tutorials because I actually do really like Nikki Tutorials, but I remember she had one of the greatest lipsticks in the world kind of titles for her video, and there were a few other influencers who did almost the exact same thing, which again screams brand copy. I do not know for certain, nor can I prove that the Pat McGrath Labs brand fed these influencers this copy and asked them to make these video titles worded the way that they were worded, but there were a handful of videos where it's just like, why do y'all all say the same thing in the title and actually within the content of the video itself? Seems kind of sketch, seems kind of undisclosed sponsorship-y. And I even remember in Nikki's video where she was talking about how these are the greatest lipsticks in the world or something, where she was showing, you know how the Pat McGrath lipsticks have the gold lips on the front of the tube? She was talking about how Pat McGrath had like special machines built to be able to twist up the lipstick and have the lips stay in the front rather than twirling around as you twist the lipstick. And I was just sitting at home like, but Nikki, that don't make no sense. Every lipstick does that. For example, this is just a lipstick from Bite that I have here. Now, if you twist this part, it goes straight up, doesn't it? Straight up, straight down. Straight up, straight down. But if you twist this part, then the lipstick twirls around. Like, that's not a special machine. That's just twisting one end or twisting the other end. Here's what I'll do. I'll even take my ring off here to kind of simulate the Pat McGrath lips on those tubes. Just gonna sit him here. Okay, you guys ready? Look. Straight up. I don't think Bite had special machines invented to be able to do that. Like I said, not trying to pick on Nikki. I like Nikki Tutorials, but I just thought that was a wow. She's really trying to sell us these lipsticks right now. And I'm sure the Pat McGrath lipsticks are actually really great, and plenty of people probably think that they're worth the money, but I won't be buying them or anything Pat McGrath anytime soon, which I covered in my last video. Number 7, we're actually going to switch from makeup for a minute, but still in the beauty space, and talk about some hair, y'all. Admittedly, I am not super well versed in the wide world of weave, but there are some brands who really just laid on real thick when it comes to their YouTube marketing. Now, back in the day, that brand was RPG Show. I don't know how many RPG Show wig reviews I have seen in my lifetime, but it's too many, girl. That brand doesn't seem to have the reach that they used to. I think since then we've moved on to brands like Wow African. I think you can probably tell how I feel about that company just from the way I said Wow African. A younger, less cynical, and even broker T did fall for the RPG Show trap. I did buy an RPG Show wig at one point. Huge regret. Huge regret. And to this day, it's why I don't mess with hardly any of these brands. In terms of like the YouTube weave market, I probably tried under 5 brands. I could count on one hand how many brands I've tried when it comes to human hair and bundles and wigs and whatnot. I understand that people have to find ways to make YouTube lucrative and profitable for themselves, or at least sustainable, so they're not losing money creating their own content, but I will say there have been a lot of channels where it's turned into nothing but wig review after wig review after wig review for Wow African or maybe 1 or 2 brands, and that tends to be when I hit the old unsubscribe. Incidentally, in my last video on 10 times that our faves lied to us, there were requests for me to do one on just hair companies. Unfortunately, I'm not really qualified to do that because, as I said, I've tried probably less than 5. I could give you my own horror stories with the ones I've tried, although I don't even know if I want to do that. But I do think it is a good topic and it's worth spreading the word. So if you guys have your own horror stories with brands that you tried based on recommendations from influencers you liked, and then it turned out that you got hoodwinked, tell your story in the comments and maybe I can put something together based on y'all's experiences. I don't know, we'll see. And at the very least, your comment might save someone else from getting scammed. All right, influencer lie number 8. I think I talked about the Vanity Planet Spin for Perfect Skin in my last video. Well, Vanity Planet is back, and this time it's with their scalp massager. Some of y'all will remember this one too. A good 4 or 5 years ago, it was a good while now, every hair influencer was talking about this Vanity Planet scalp massager brush. It was the same old thing as always with Vanity Planet. Use my special code and get the scalp massager for like 98% off its actual value. Always a red flag that the thing actually is a piece of shit. And yet again, with all the influencers I saw peddling that scalp massager, ain't none of them still talking about it today. Unless, of course, Vanity Planet re-ups to sponsor another video. This is one that I fell for again, which is probably why I'm still salty, because one thing none of these influencers said is that that thing freaking hurts. I remember that the massager tips or whatever on it were extremely pointy. So if you apply anything more than just the lightest pressure, I found it to be kind of irritating and painful on my scalp. And I'm not even going to get into a lot of the potentially bogus claims about how it helps hair growth. Like, give me a fucking break. I do know some studies have provided evidence that suggests there is a correlation between things like inversion therapy and scalp massages helping to facilitate more hair growth. But I don't think the Vanity Planet massager is the way to get there, my dude. This thing was typically shown to be used in the shower to help massage or shampoo into your scalp and get at them roots. And I just don't think there was anything that brush was doing that's any better than just using your fingers. In fact, I feel like it's worse because it hurts. Perhaps if you were using it out of the shower and for a longer duration, maybe if you were just using it when you were sitting on your couch and actually using it for, 15 minutes, 20 minutes, something like that, then and only then could I see maybe it providing some hair growth acceleration. But yeah, the way it was being presented in these influencer videos and whatnot, I definitely felt stupid falling for it. Number 9 is another item that almost certainly does more harm than good, and that's dermal rollers. Ah yes, another bygone era of YouTube where everyone was putting needles on their faces. Talking about how these miniature push lawnmowers, except with tiny needles all over them, were supposed to help basically trick your skin into thinking it's injured. It's not a trick, it is injured, thereby stimulating collagen production and then helping your skincare products to absorb better through all of the new holes in your face that you just created. I'm not so sure I want my skincare going directly into my bloodstream like that, y'all. Yeah, the dermal rollers. That was just one of those things where I couldn't wait for it to go away because I'm no skincare expert. I'm no esthetician. It was just the logic for me jumped out where I was just like, this seems bad. Definitely the type of treatment that if you're gonna get it done, please have a professional do it. I just saw so many of these beauty influencers just raking these things over their faces. It was hard to watch. And again, who's still doing that these days? I don't know the last time I saw any of these YouTubers who were swearing by dermal rolling changing their skin doing it now. Sure, maybe there's 1 or 2 stragglers, but I ain't seen no one use a dermal roller in years. And thank God, because those things, I cannot imagine that the benefits outweigh the risks and potential damage. All right, number 10. This one is probably the most shady because it's so general, but just hear me out. I would say that our faves lied to us when they were promoting their own doggone collabs. Not every time. Sometimes you will see an influencer who does a collab with a brand and they continue to use that product for months or even potentially years if it's still available, well after they've actually announced and launched that collaboration. But just take a moment to think about all the times that we've seen influencers do a collab. They're so excited, they've been working on this for months, maybe even years. Collab launches, and then they maybe mention it one other time, if that, and then never again. Often it has nothing to do with whether the product is no longer available. It'll still be available. They agree to these collabs, they do whatever they are contractually obligated to do, whether it's one post, one video, whatever the case, and then that's it. If they really were spending all of these months and months working on these collabs, you'd think they'd probably want to spend a couple months actually using these products on their channels. But in my experience, that's rare. More often than not, the only time these influencers care about the collabs is in the announcement video. Following that, they go right back to using whatever they normally use or just whatever's new. It's why I remain skeptical about so many of these influencer collabs, where I think it's more about sales and them just slapping their name on something, gaining clout by being associated with certain brands, rather than something that they actually were passionate about and worked on for a long time. The exact opposite of this would be my girl Mel Thompson. Toward the end of last year, she did a collab with Christian Audette where she launched 2 lipsticks and 2 lip liners, and she wears them to death. And I love to see it. It's sad that it's refreshing to see someone who actually created something and did a collab that she legitimately believes in. That should really be the rule and not the exception. So just keep your peepers peeled. The next time your fave has a collab, see if she or he ever mentions it ever again within 1 to 2 videos of the thing actually launches, because odds are they won't. That's going to do it for this round of 10 times the booty gurus lied to us. This is actually my first real video of 2020, which is kind of sad because I do like to be more consistent than I've been lately, but it's been rough, girl. Anyway, thanks again for watching. And before I go, we are in a new year. It's a new decade, in fact, so it's important for us to keep a very, very clear mindset and to remember to never trust anyone with a Morphe code. Bye-bye.
That's a nappy-headed hose there, I'm going to tell you that now.